Welcome everybody. Welcome on Zoom here. Welcome on YouTube when you're coming on to our final Resonance Academy Faculty Q&A of 2020. What a year it has been, and through it all, we have come here every month and really gratefully spent this time with everybody that joins us here on Zoom and usually on Facebook Live. I guess there's some troubles getting onto Facebook these days from Zoom, so we're on YouTube now today. And yeah, just really grateful to have been able to share this very bizarre, strange, intense year together in these gatherings once a month with the faculty and once a month with Nassim on the Live with Nassim sessions that we have. And I see a bunch of people are coming in on Zoom right now. And so welcome everybody. People on Zoom are a part of our Resonance Academy, and we always are grateful that you guys come and join us for this. And this is a Q&A, and so we welcome your questions, and you can post them in the Q&A part of Zoom, the little Q&A button down at the bottom, and post a question there for us. And then vote the questions. We can vote them up and see which ones are the most popular. Also, just a reminder for the chat to be sure to switch over your chat setting from just panelists to panelists and attendees. There's an option for who those chats go to. And if you don't know that, you're just communicating with us panelists only. So change it over to panelists and attendees. I'll remind you guys again about that a little later, for the ones who are still coming on. So my name is Marshall Leffertson. I am a member of the faculty and member of the board of directors of Resonance Science Foundation. And always great to be there and host these sessions. And today we have William Brown, we have Inez Ordaneta coming in from Headquarters Central. And we have Jamie Janover with a nice toasty fire cooking in the background out there in probably chilly, snowy Colorado. And we'll see. I don't know if Adam's going to make it today or not. Let's see. There's somebody else maybe who's no, he's not there. So great. Why don't we do a little quick round of check-ins and see what's cooking for each of us. How about you, Ines? You're there in I think in Taurus Tech still. I think you said, right?
Yeah, I'm back here in Taurus Tech facilities since 1 week ago. Very excited. It's unbelievable. I am very happy because we are just about to finish Module 7. It's been a huge adventure, and also starting to look into the Module 8, the new model which is going to be linked to the article, the paper, which is about to be also out in the community soon. So, well, that's basically my update. I have a lot of work in regards to Module 7 and Module 8, but we're having a beautiful result. Beautiful. I'm very happy about it. And here, sharing with the rest of the team here at Taurus Tech facilities, we're also performing some new experiments that maybe in this next call we could talk about them. But yeah, so in summary, that would be my update for the time being. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I'm so looking forward to Module 7 sometime soon, and then of course the paper in Module 8 is going to be just incredible. Do you have any kind of a sense as Module 7 like early in the new year or something like that?
Yeah, I would say that probably mid January at most. The idea would have been to be able to launch it in December, but we have had so many things going on and so many food on our plates that it's like, okay, yeah, we'll have it for January. So, well, it's okay.
That's good. All in the right timing.
Yeah.
For those who are,
we will still be in the Christmas spirit.
Yes, it will. For those who are joining us on YouTube and may not be familiar with our program, we have an online course in Unified Physics, Unified Science at resonancescience.org that is free. And there are 6 modules in the course right now. And Ines and Nassim and the team are working on Module 7, which incorporates the research and the theory presented in the papers that have been published since we first launched the program in 2014. So we have 6 years of advancements that are coming into Module 7. And then Module 8 will encompass the very groundbreaking paper that's in the works right now, which we won't go into what that is right now. That will be coming, but that's so exciting, Ines. And really grateful you're here today. Thank you. Yeah. Jamie, what's cooking for you? You're next in my little list.
Oh, we're just wrapping up quite a year with Resonance Science Foundation because, you know, we had to do the pivot that everybody on the world had to do. And our version of that was launching the core Unified Science course as a free offering. And we now have 77,000 people in that course. So that's really cool because those are people from every continent. And it means that Nassim's life mission of creating resonance and spreading coherent scientific information is happening in a big way. And we have a bunch of new courses that came out in the Resonance Academy, including stuff from Dr. Lydia, who's going to be doing a free live call on Friday of this week in just a couple of days, talking about the sacred science of ancient temples. And it's super interesting because we're talking, you know, megalithic architecture around the world and how it relates to unified physics and resonance and energy fields and stuff like that. So I'm really looking, I'm gonna help host that with her on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. And like Inez said, Olivier and Nassim cranking out this paper, and we're gonna have a whole module about the paper coming out, like Inez said. And I'm excited about 2021 because 2020 was a lot of us trying to like rebuild the whole architecture from changing a lot of things in the organization. And I'm happy to report that Resonance Science Foundation is like achieving its mission of unifying science more than ever in 2020, despite the challenges, or maybe it's because of the challenges. And so 2021, I think, is just going to be next level, taking off. And there's a whole bunch of courses coming from, like Alan Green is going to do a course I really look forward to. Marshall, aren't you going to do a course too in 2021? Is that true?
Yes, I'll say yes. I haven't done anything in the works yet, but you know, of course, there's the making a course from what's in my book, which is something I'll be putting my attention on.
You can get Marshall's book right now. You don't have to wait for the course. Cosmometry. Check out cosmometry.net. It's .net, right, Marshall?
.com for the book.
.com. Okay, cosmometry.com. Check it out. Really great book, and I look forward to the course version of that. I also heard rumors that William is doing another course. Is that true, William?
Yes, that's true. I've had one in the works. You know, I've been doing so many other tasks, you know, experiments here and so much else that you know, it's been kind of slow going on the development. But I do have a second installment of the Big Questions course that is in the works, and actually. I'm hoping to have that provided early next year.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's going to get into some interesting topics. That's for sure.
No doubt, William. We would expect nothing less of you.
Even looking at you know, some of the potential genetic engineering events that could have possibly happened early on in the development of humanity, and so what those could have been and how they could have been working. So yeah, a lot of interesting avenues to get into, I think.
That's excellent. So all this to say that we have a great crew, a great faculty, and everybody's now hunkering down into like getting out new content. So I really appreciate all the folks out there, and there's a lot of you right out there that have been supporting this organization and this STEM and the mission for a really long time. And you guys like super stepped up this year. We've got more than 1,000 contributing members to the organization, which gives you access to like all this other content and being able to ask questions on these Zoom calls. So that being said, I'm going to hand it over to our Master of Ceremonies and the Master of the Q&A tab, Marshall Lefferts.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, just to mention, we also, of course, have our main program in Unified Physics, Unified Science in Spanish and French translation. And we have a couple of upcoming courses in Spanish, elective courses coming from Maria Carolina and Arturo. We have Dr. Lydia's new course. We have Meredith Sands-Cater's course, Fractal Anatomy and the Geometry of Healing, which just launched about a month ago, as well as Jonathan Quinton's course in Universal Order. These are all elective courses. And that also launched about 2 months ago. So we got lots of great stuff. And I don't know, William, did you want to share any other update before we continue?
Oh, yeah, sure. So it has been pretty interesting around here in the lab at Taurus Tech. I've been actually working with Inez and a team of researchers that she's been working with. And we've been doing some interesting experimentation here involving consciousness. Her research team had published previously, had done experiments. It's not an actual published research as of yet, but they had done research looking at this particular phenomenon where a experienced meditator, and this is an individual who has been practicing advanced techniques of meditation for 20 plus years, particularly with the Dzogchen and Bon traditions in Nepal, and actually getting kind of initiated into some of the more higher like esoteric teachings. And Dzogchen and Bon are already kind of esoteric branches of Buddhism, particularly focusing on meditation techniques. So he's got some pretty advanced methodologies to tap into that unified field, right? That coupled to the information field of the vacuum structure. But so we have some really nice facilities here for running very sensitive tests. So we have a facility, the Advanced Physics Isolation Chamber, which can block out nearly all environmental electromagnetic fields. So it's a very electromagnetically quiet room that we have, and we have a photomultiplier tube in there, a photodetector, a light emitter that has a very precise emission of photons. And some of the tests we've been running is to see if when this individual is in that room with this light emitter and photodetector, and he gets into this state, this meditative state, does it change the photon flux? So we've got this real constant reading of how many photons are being emitted per second. And what Inez and her team had seen previously is that indeed, when he enters into this state, they register a change in the photon flux. And in one sense, this is showing that a change in the consciousness of this individual directed at this apparatus changes the physical properties of the apparatus, of the physical properties of what's happening. Photons being emitted, photons being detected. But we have a whole slew of very sensitive instruments because one of the ideas is if he's coupling to the vacuum structure, the information field of space, it could be changing space-time, as in like Lorentz contractions, so something that we might be able to detect with like time dilation, mass dilation, these kind of things, albeit, these would be extremely minute effects, but we have extremely sensitive devices to detect it. Like this isolation chamber is equipped with an atomic clock, a very precise accelerometer, so we can measure changes, any inertial changes at a very micro degree scale. And then an atomic clock, if there's a deviation and a fraction of a billionth of a second, we can detect it. So we're running these tests right now, and it's been pretty interesting. But we're hoping that this could be, experimental research into some of the mechanisms of consciousness and its interaction via the unified field.
That sounds pretty amazing. Wow, I hadn't heard about that. That's some real fine-tuned exploration there going on. That's very exciting. Nice. Great. And how are the tomatoes doing?
Yeah, so we've got a group of tomatoes that I harvested back in October 2019. And these tomatoes were grown with our tetrahelix technology, which I've got some prototype versions there if people aren't familiar with it. These are prototypes. This is not what it looks like right now. But essentially we're able to arrange the arc crystals in a tetrahelix geometry. And I know you're very familiar with this, Marshall, because this was described by Buckminster Fuller, the tetrahelix. Yeah, sure. It's also known as the Coxeter helix.
Right.
But basically, a helical configuration assembled via tetrahedrons. And the way that we assemble this, it actually has the same proportional ratio as the DNA, the exact same proportional ratio.
Wow.
In terms of how many turns per number of units. So we grew these tomatoes with the unit, and we got 250% increase in yield of the tomatoes. These nice big juicy tomatoes, and then we placed them around a cuboctahedral assembly of the arc crystals, and this was back in, as I said, October 2019. These tomatoes are still going, over a year later. So our control group, they were desiccated, molded over, dried out about 3 months after harvesting. I mean, they were completely desiccated, Our tetrahelix group, our arc crystal group, looked nearly edible at that same point in time. And even now, they're still not desiccated. They still haven't molded over. They have no they haven't got like black discolorations. We've rerun the experiment. I have other tomatoes, and we've got in this new experiment, we've got 50 tomatoes in each group. And in our control group that I started a month ago, they have black patches on them. They're molded, they're desiccated. And in our group that is over a year old, we've yet to see any of that occur. So I'm looking forward to 2021 when I can have a set of 3 pictures of the tomatoes, what they looked like in 2019, what they look like in 2020 and what they look like in 2021.
That's fantastic.
It's really,
This is phenomenal.
it's
Wow.
phenomenal. Yeah.
It kind of says everything right there.
Yeah.
Really what the effect of our crystal is in terms of biological sustenance, vitality.
And effects on water too, because it looks like, that's one of the primary things that we're seeing is that the tomatoes are able to retain the water like, orders of magnitude, like significantly better. And so, they don't desiccate so rapidly, they don't deteriorate so rapidly. And, we're thinking that that's like retaining that coherent water. So yeah.
That's great.
There's also the experiments with the wheatgrass.
Yeah.
That's amazing because
Nassim,
you're preparing. Yeah, from what I saw, you had already set up the setup is almost finished for the wheatgrass in a very, very large surface area. So it would be, I don't know, it was 4 meters by 4 meters or something.
About 4.5 meters.
Yeah, and that was amazing because what I already saw in the pictures you showed me about these rings creating like a crop circle, let's say. Not only you see the rings, which is something wow, but you also see that there's this kind of bending of the wheatgrass, like if there's some kind of spin going on, a vorticity going on. That was unbelievable. You
guys are doing some sort of precognition kind of entanglement thing, because there's a question in the Q&A that says, from Anne Whitcomb, saying, does the experiment growing wheatgrass help explain the large crop circles in places like England? If so, would it be frequencies in the soil/earth, wait, it just scrolled, that manifest in the geometric designs, or frequencies introduced by someone or something? So there's a question directly related to what you were just talking about.
And just in case,
synchronicity.
In case whoever was not on the last live with Nassim, he shared, I think it was Nassim did, or was it you, William, last time?
I heard that Nassim was discussing some of the results we've seen.
He shared the photographs. He shared the photographs of the prior experiment with the circles of the wheatgrass. So I think probably Anne had seen that from 2 weeks ago, which is really cool to see. So yeah, well, let's start with that question there. How does this relate to?
I also saw quite a bit of comments asking if we could show some pictures of the tomatoes. So I just pulled up some pictures. I'll just share that real quick, and then also we could probably pull up some pictures of the wheatgrass too. So are we seeing tomatoes?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is our longevity produce shelf life experimentation. So this is actually a more recent one where we got 100 tomatoes, and we actually went to the farm to get them. So that, we know they all came from the same place. They were all harvested at the same time. Many of these came from the same vine. That we bought vines which had about 6 tomatoes on each, and then we randomized those, split them into 2 groups, and we've got a group with 8 matrix PGQ-MIM, and this is in a radiative Stella octangula geometry. But within 2 weeks, this experiment is actually a lot farther along now, but within 2 weeks, you can already see in the control group there's black discoloration. The tomatoes are starting to desiccate, but our 8 matrix PGQ-MIM group just fine. And actually, some of the stuff going on right now in the control group, they're black, they're desiccated, drying out, molding over, and they've got fruit fly infestation. Our crystal group experimental group, none of that. No discolorations, no mold growth, no fruit flies, and minimal desiccation, especially relative to our control group. And then also, this is our tomato test that was going since 2019. Yeah, and so, we've got our tomatoes around the PGQ MIM. So this picture is actually at 300 days. I could try to find one where we're at 365 days. It doesn't look much different though. But our control group, these are dried out raisins. They're done, but yeah. So our tomatoes.
Amazing. Fantastic. Is there any correlation you see with those circles in the wheatgrass that could be correlated to what we see with crop circles?
Yeah.
Question here.
Yeah, I would think certainly so. Because I guess in my mind, at least, the question would be, how are those crop circles being generated? Now, definitely some of them are hoaxsters who are, actually copying some of the other crop circles. So I don't think that all of the events of crop circles are unexplainable in that sense. But there's definitely a large portion of crop circles that I do not believe are man-made. If anything, just there's as the phenomenon started occurring, there's some mimicry going on where people are like, I could replicate that, using boards and stomping it down. But so in the, situations where the crop circles being generated are not fabrications, so to speak, the question in my mind is, so how is that being done? And actually, after seeing this effect that the arc crystal has, this 8-matrix cuboctahedral assembly of the arc crystals, after seeing the effect that it has on our field of wheatgrass, it kind of makes me think, well, maybe they're just structuring space-time, inducing fields like vortices in space-time, and that's enough force to generate the patterns, because what we see in our field experiments with the wheatgrass is uncannily similar to a crop circle. And our best postulation for how this 8-matrix cuboctahedral arc crystal assembly is doing that is that it's structuring space-time in that area. And you could almost picture like a double toroidal verticular pattern, a flux of energy being induced in space, in the structure of space, in the vacuum structure. And the biological system being so innately coupled to the vacuum structure responds very readily to even what we would consider perhaps a small changes in the flux, energy flux, and geometry of space-time. So when the wheatgrass is germinating and growing in this field, it actually starts to reveal this space-time structure underneath.
That's really something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does appear to give an indication of the kind of energy dynamics that would be at play.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand the relationship between the PSU vacuum field, everything is emerging from into expression, into form, and the potential for the dynamic interaction with that field through the kinds of, the art crystal is a very small scale, very simple and simplistic in a way example of that kind of technology. And yet, wow, even at this small scale, we're seeing these kinds of effects.
Yeah.
So you can imagine something at a much more advanced level of application of that knowledge, of the understanding of the field, the geometry, creating coherence and interaction with the physical biological systems that you said, could induce these kinds of effects. I mean, we're seeing it. So of course it's growing slowly in the test you have, and then crop circles it's nearly instantaneous. So you can see there's a big leap there in the way that's being generated.
Seems like it's pointing to the underlying principle of, the more coherency and the more organization there is in matter, the more the field is coherent, and vice versa. Because with magnetism, for example, in a magnet, everything's aligned up in the same direction, right? So it creates this, and same with the art crystal, all the molecular structure is aligned in the same direction. And so that kind of is a reminder to us as biological beings, like, hey, wonder if I could organize my body more. Like if I could get my body to be more all in alignment in the same direction or resonating, then my field is better and more resonant too, which translates hopefully to feeling better and being less stressed out. I feel like the challenge is reacting to the stuff that throws you off balance, and you're like, whoa, sideways, oh no, something broke or something went wrong, or an accident, and then you're like, how do I get myself back to where I was before that happened? How quickly can I recover? And the physics is kind of a reminder of that. That's kind of why I like really knowing the physics really well, because then you can kind of imagine it in your own head as to like, oh, well, how would that work for me personally? Because it's a challenge to keep yourself balanced these days, to say the least, with all the stuff that gets thrown at us and the conflicting information. But Resonance Science Foundation is like figuring out how to make everything resonate, like the whole planet, by doing these little nodes, things like the crystals, the information, the sharing of the knowledge. And so I just am reflecting back to folks like William and Nassim that are in the lab, like trying to figure out this physics, is like, it goes beyond just figuring out the physics. It actually helps a lot of people over the whole planet who are digesting this information. It certainly has been helping me. I really appreciate being involved with this whole organization.
So I was gonna show a couple of pictures of the wheatgrass in case folks hadn't seen.
Go ahead.
So that they get an idea of what we're talking about when I'm discussing this. So this is I think this is about 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters sized test bed for the field. And we have the 8 matrix cuboctahedral art crystal assembly in the center here. And even as the wheatgrass is first generating, you can see, it's not a homogeneous germination. There's these areas where it's concentrated, and I can almost see almost like a spiraling formation where you get faster rates of germination in some of the seeds, and then as it germinates more quickly, as it continues to grow, we actually start to see this banding, almost like even wave interference patterns, or even a rock dropped onto a lake and the surface rippling out. So definitely a large area of concentration of increased growth rate and growth density directly above the 8 matrix, but then these like shells going out. And as this got along, you could really see this like vortexing type pattern, this bending of the field. This is towards the end of the experiment, where it almost looks like, there was a little tornado that was hovering over the area, causing this bending. And even our samples had this definite bend to them. And so the test we have going now is, we kept getting larger and larger growth areas because, first we see, okay, there's this increased growth area over the 8 matrix, but it looks like there's also this like secondary shell effect occurring with increased growth density some distance away from that. So we're like, let's get a bigger one and see if that's really happening, a bigger growth area. We do that, and sure enough, we see it, but it looks like maybe there's another one. So we get a larger growth area, and we see another like harmonic shell of increased growth rate. And so now we're like, let's get an even bigger field and see how far does this effect extend out.
This is very interesting because in fact then you can say okay, so when you had only one crystal, it would have some reach, but very probably this is not the sum of 8 crystals, separate crystals. This is the synergy of 8 crystals amplifying in a non-linear way, because so, and it's very incredible to see how large this could go, because when you see the crystals, 8 crystals together, it's a rather small shape. It's rather small. I don't know how much in diameter that could have in total, but I don't think it goes to 10 centimeters in diameter. I don't think these 8 crystals together would even get to 10. So seeing the reach of this strength, because that's what you feel with this bending of, you feel some force, a strength, a very strong strength there. Going up to that size, 4 meters and even beyond, it really asks how much synergy it's being created there, how much constructive interference between these crystals is happening, such that we have that size. So that would be a very interesting calculation to do once we have it all, to see what's the difference between one crystal, the synergy with 2 crystals, 4 crystals, and see how this is amplifying, because it's not linear for sure. For sure, it won't be linear. It couldn't be. It's amplifying very fast and very extensively. So that would be something interesting to look at.
That is a great point. I love that. Yeah, because synergy is an inherent component in universal dynamics, and to have this sort of an experimental apparatus to actually see if we can quantify that in some way would be really, really cool. That's a great insight. I love that. Well, why don't we shift over to some questions? And I just want to remind everybody who's posting in the chat to switch over to the option in your chat for panelists and attendees, because I see some people are still just posting to panelists only. You don't know it, so only we are seeing some of your comments. So go ahead and switch over to panelists and attendees for that. And also, I was going to mention something else and I can't remember what it was. Okay, so we'll switch over to some questions. And the first one, and we're going to go with the ones that have been voted up to the top to start with. There are 3 that have more than 1 vote, so we can start with those, and then we can hop around as we want to see what we want to pull up. So we'll start with this one from Michelle Alderson, and I will also invite the participants whose question we're asking to come on to the panel here. by promoting you to a panelist. And if you'd like to participate, you can open up your video feed and also unmute your audio when you want to talk. If you don't want to participate, that's fine. It's not an obligation. You can just leave your video off and stay muted and no problem. But that way we can give you the option. So the first one here from Michelle Alderson is an interesting question. She says, I hope this question makes sense. Here goes. Adam Apollo explained that PSUs are entangled with every other PSU going all the way back through space and time. Thus, information exchange happens due to the shape design of space-time, pentagrams stacked on top of pentagrams. William Brown once explained that human DNA was altered, resulting in an abundance of alu-retrotransposon, which facilitates learning. Here's my question. Why do you think our DNA was tweaked to help us learn when we're made up of PSUs which are entangled to every other PSU, meaning we should have access to information without being, how should we say, upgraded?
Excellent question. I'll take it. unless someone else wants to speak to it.
I can just maybe answer a little bit, and then you can go ahead and yeah, just to give a little idea.
Yeah.
So then it would be something like, okay, it is true that all the information is holographically, let's say, imprinted in a proton. This meaning that everything is like all information in one proton is connected to all other information in all the other protons, and this is what gives the proton the stability that it has, and that it reaches cosmological and universal level, no? So that is true. But then how do you extract that information, and how this information is used by the space-time and to create organisms and more complex organisms up to the size of our size and up to the complexity of information exchange that we have? This is like something completely different. I mean, we do have that, but we have to create the let's say like the hardware for it. So it's not only, so it is intrinsically the hardware of the universe and of the blank structure of space-time. But then and then what would the fun be if it was so easy? I mean, there's some organization which creates biological structures, and the first unicellular, and then through water and so many things that I'm sure will extend much further than me. But in summary, the thing is that you have to create like this kind of hardware in order to have this self-awareness that can achieve this property, because basically we're speaking that self-awareness is maybe a property that enhances or increases with complexity. So, and this complexity is something that is that it obeys a certain organization pattern. So I guess it would be something linked to that. So I leave William, please. That would be my comment about it.
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to start. Is that you know, so oftentimes it's framed in the idea that this upgrade, potential incursion of genetic engineering by an extraterrestrial intelligent civilization, it's often framed as this occurred just only with humans. I don't see it that way. I think that this kind of guiding along of the evolutionary path of life on Earth extends through the entire biosphere and starts at the origins of life on Earth. So the idea, though, so if life is innately coupled to this information field of the space memory network, why would it need upgrades? Well, so certainly that information flow with the morphogenic field is completely on its own a process that will take, complex inorganic matter and, you know, uh, allow it to develop into complex organic biochemical networks that begin to self-replicate and form uh, membranes and i.e. cells and essentially birth living organisms as the complexity and coherence of organization of matter in the universe increases. But that probably takes a long time on its own to occur. But it had to have occurred at some point because, life had to generate at some point in the universe. After the stars formed and they generated enough heavy nuclei to make planets and the planets formed, you had a prebiotic era that had to at some point transition to life. And, this is going back, 10 billion years, 12 billion years ago that we're talking about this transition from a prebiotic era to what we would consider planets that have living organisms on them. But so one of the things, though, if you look at the molecular biology of life on Earth, going back to the earliest fossil records, which actually are about 3.2 billion years ago, you already have complex organisms. I mean, they're unicellular organisms, but even a unicellular organism, the replicative machinery for that organism is some of the most complex arrangements of matter in the universe. For instance, it's got to have that DNA molecule, the DNA RNA complex, the polymerase machinery to read it and replicate that DNA and RNA, the ribosome to translate the code of that message into proteins that are the functional units of the cell. Those molecules, those nanomachines, are, as I said, some of the most complex arrangements of matter in the universe. So to see that, like as soon as the surface of the Earth cools down, solidifies, and is cool enough for liquid water to exist on the surface, and you see life all of a sudden, like that quickly, it in my estimation is evidence that life didn't actually form on Earth de novo, in and of itself. And also, just given the fact that probably life was forming in the universe and in the galaxy billions and billions of years before Earth even formed. So what you get is a term called directed panspermia. This was actually first proposed.
I'm so sorry. Could you say that one more time? I'll never get to talk to you again, probably. Hold on. Just say that one more time, please.
Okay. Yeah. So it's actually a prominent theory in science, and I would also note an acceptable theory within science, which is directed panspermia. And that term is actually the title of a paper by Francis Crick and Lee Orgel. Now, Francis Crick is one of the scientists with Watson, Dr. Watson, who first described the geometry of DNA back in the early 1950s. And prior to that, it was not understood that DNA was the heritable material of living organisms. It was actually thought DNA wasn't the molecule that was the hereditary information carrying molecule of the cell. It was actually thought it was proteins. But when Francis Crick and Watson delineated the geometry and the base pairing rules of DNA, that was the final confirmation that DNA is the information molecule. So the guy who discovered DNA as the information carrying molecule, about 20 years after that, he published a paper with this organic chemist Lee Orgel called Directed Panspermia. Now, in the interim between that, Francis Crick also started the science of molecular biology. He described the DNA, he described the coding mechanism of DNA, because all this was unknown, how that code is translated into proteins. And in his paper, let me see if I can pull it up. It starts off, it now seems unlikely that extraterrestrial living organisms could have reached the Earth either as spores driven by the radiation pressure from another star, or as living organisms embedded in a meteorite. So at the time of the publication of this paper, a leading hypothesis for life on Earth was just panspermia itself. So, you've got billions and billions of years of planet and star formation before the Earth forms. So the idea is that life is actually being seeded throughout the galaxy, either carried through space by solar wind or on meteorites, and that life kind of as spores comes down on the early formed Earth and seeds Earth with life. And so, they started their paper saying that's probably unlikely. As an alternative to these 19th century mechanisms, we have considered directed panspermia, the theory that organisms were deliberately transmitted to the Earth by intelligent beings on another planet. We conclude that it is possible that life reached Earth in this way. So this is a paper that they published back in the 1970s. But so, that's kind of the framework that I actually adopt myself in thinking about this, is that, life does form naturally via the information exchange with the morphogenic field, with the space memory network. That happened 10, 12 billion years ago. And that's plenty of time for lots of other intelligent civilizations to arise before Earth is even formed. And, one of the endeavors of these intelligent civilizations might be to direct the seeding of the galaxy with life. So they know, it takes a pretty long time for this to happen on its own. We'll give it a little kickstart, a little jump start. You could even go further. So we'll seed this newly formed planet with life, kind of help it along, evolve a little bit more quickly than it would on its own. And maybe even give it a little jump start to evolve intelligent life. And so that's where like the ALU retrotransposons come into play. And so a lot of my work recently has been looking at the role of retroviral engineering, introducing viruses to accelerate the evolution of life on Earth, kind of in a hands-off approach, where the civilization doesn't even necessarily have to come here at all. They could just send out a viral vector that comes down and uploads a program into Earth, into a living organism. And actually, one of the more remarkable things, I see evidence of that with the ALU retrotransposon, where it's this program that's uploaded into early humans, and it causes an expansion of the brain, increases intelligence. One of the more recent things I've been researching is the formation of the nucleus in the first cells. So these are, there's bacterial cells, which are called prokaryotes, which don't have a genomic nucleus. Then there's eukaryotes, which is animals and plants, multicellular organisms. So all unicellular organisms, they don't have a nucleus. The multicellular organisms have a nucleus. That nuclear compartment, it turns out, was formed via a viral upload of a program. So even the formation of multicellular organisms
Okay.
came from this viral upload.
Okay,
Hey,
so
it's just that.
it's not just aliens, it's like it's viruses shaking hands with aliens to create us, so we learned quicker.
Well, the idea
How are
would
you
be.
sane? How are you such a sane person? This is
I
blowing
wouldn't go
my
that
mind.
far. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm sane. There's folks here around the lab that would probably disagree with that.
Yeah, we won't make assumptions.
Yeah.
But the idea is more so that these intelligent civilizations might use that as the engineering mechanism. So, they basically engineer these viral vectors, which are, I mean, to us, we call them viruses, but they're gene uploading programs.
Okay, so our DNA was altered slightly, and viruses teach the new cells. So that's how they learn, which
And
are also created.
yeah, but also
Okay.
kind of jumpstart what would be considered a natural evolution. It kind of bypasses the normal, like, natural evolutionary process where things kind of happen by trial and error. The kind of Mendelian or Darwinian idea of evolution where changes in organisms are the accrual of small changes in the DNA over long periods of time.
Right.
What the gene upload programs do, the viral vectors, is they can come in, insert in a whole bunch of genes, novel genes that the cell can then exact, co-optate, and take those new genes and do things it never could do before. Because it's like it's new software, which for cells, they make hardware from the software. So they can make new hardware. So this included things like, okay, with these new genes that were just uploaded, we can now make this compartment so that we can have highly specialized chromosomes, highly specialized genetic material. This was instrumental in allowing cells to start to come together in multicellular um, companionships, multicellular configurations. So, you could think of it as like teaching, but it's kind of like it's a jump start.
Once again, you have blown my mind, and thank you so much for answering my question. I truly appreciate everything you guys do. I'm really liking this. Made my whole day. Thank you so much.
Great question.
Where are you located, Michelle?
I'm in Ontario, Canada. Arthur, Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Much love.
Yeah. Me too. William, it kind of sounds like the mRNA vaccines that are coming down the pipeline might be filling a similar role here in our evolutionary journey.
Except that those aren't coming from an advanced intelligence.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that.
Oh,
There's Israeli,
okay.
that Israeli, I forgot what his role was. What was he? I can't remember, but he was the one that just said, there are aliens, they are on the earth, they are collaborating with the government and the military, and we do have contracts with them. And maybe, in fact, that mRNA is actually coming from.
That's the Israeli. He was director of their space program or something.
Something at that level, yeah, something
uh-huh.
at a pretty high level. Just recently came out and said.
Yeah, that was a space. That was the space director, the space agency director in Israel, and he worked for 20 years from 1981 to 2010. He was doing this. Well, he was the director of the space institution, the space program, and just very recently, I don't know, 1 week ago at most, he just gave this this interview, well, saying that alien civilizations were contacted, or I don't remember the direction it went, but basically they told, as they asked these authorities to please keep secret their existence, because apparently humanity was not ready for it. And here is, well, who knows, whatever political reason was behind, but in any case, the fact that this person, which has that trajectory and that experience, just came out very recently, and this happening in this context where we have had COVID, we're in a second pandemia, and also there's this month with we're having so many like shaking events cosmologically, with this alignment of Saturn and Jupiter, and then there's also the meteorite shower that we just recently had, and there was this solar eclipse on Monday. So many things happening, and they're unraveling this information at the same time. This is something that it's like quite interesting, this moment that it's happening, all this together. So yeah, who knows?
It's been a series of baby steps of like these little disclosures, right? Like the Navy guys, they released it. The Navy officially was like, yeah, here, look, unidentified vehicles. And then some defense contractor was quoted in the New York Times of saying, yeah, we have off-planet vehicles.
Yeah, look at that. That was the Pentagon saying that. And that was at the first. So this is a quite strange coincidence, because first period of the pandemia, we have Pentagon releasing their videos and saying this is real material, and we endorsing that and saying, oh, this is definitely not a real phenomena, and. So this happens in the first period, and then the second period, which is now all everyone locked again, and we're a second like pandemia with the same virus and all that. And so then comes this person, this Israeli person, and authority in the matter, and gives these declarations. It's like, oh, whoa, what's happening? What's happening?
Very interesting.
I would just say that I have to leave at this moment. So yeah, I have to go.
Oh, you have to leave already? Oh, okay.
I have to leave already.
Well,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have a very limited amount of time here in Taurus Tech, so I have to get going to the experiments and all that. So yeah.
Okay, Ines. Well, we'll get more of you next time for sure.
Yeah, and with many more exciting news and results for the experiment. I'll share them after.
You. And I'll let everybody know that if you want to see more of Ines, because she's trilingual, she's in the Spanish course calls and the French calls quite often. So if you speak those other languages, or you want to see Ines present in those languages, you could join those other academies.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for all. Bye.
You're getting lots of love from our participants here.
Lots, and happy happy holidays for everyone. Happy holidays for everyone, and Happy New Year and happy solstice.
See you next year.
Yes.
See you next year.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right, so let's continue on then. I brought Jeff Colbrook on. Hey, Jeffrey.
Hey, guys.
Free.
Hey, Jeff.
And Jeff always has a question, at least one. Always interesting ones. This one is, would the structure of art crystal water enhance water's ability to store memory, specifically of vibrational sound and consciousness frequencies that have shown healing abilities? Have you used distilled water charged by art crystal versus tap water to compare results? Do you believe using distilled water would allow better control of the contents of the water's memory for enhanced positive effects on the organisms, including human. I'll be back to you, William.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very interesting question there. Yeah, because we have done that kind of comparative analysis between distilled water, tap water. We even have what's called molecular grade water, which is more pure than distilled water. So it starts with distilled water and then has further purification processes to get what's this milliQ pure water, ultra pure water. It has like a contaminant of maybe 1 part per billion, and the contaminant is usually like a dissolved CO2 molecule from the atmosphere. Yeah, so we have done this kind of comparison, spring water, and what we have found is that the purified water, the distilled water, and even the ultra pure water is actually less efficient at storing memory or information. So actually, in like an experiment, the tap water would be better at storing the information than distilled water. And one of the reasons for this is because of the dissolved minerals that you get in tap water. Now spring water is probably the best because it has dissolved minerals, but it doesn't have added chlorine and fluoride and all those other chemicals that make it into the tap water, which actually, even though it has the minerals so it can make structured um, water more efficiently than purely distilled water, that other stuff kind of is detrimental, right? But so the spring water is probably the best in that sense. But those minerals, they form cationic complexes in the water structure. So they actually help to hold geometric structure in the bulk water. Without those, it's actually more difficult for the water to retain a geometric form, a nanostructure. It can, but when you have those mineral ions, they can help to stabilize those structures and they last a lot longer. They're more resilient. So oftentimes what we'll even do is we'll get the distilled water so that it doesn't have the nasty stuff that you can get that comes with tap water, and we'll add a mineral solution to it for our test. And the mineral solution includes like magnesium, potassium, sodium chloride. One of my favorite formulations also has lithium, trace amounts of lithium, which actually has pretty remarkable nuclear spin properties. So it's actually not only helps with water structure and memory, but it's also active in the brain if you drink it. So I really like that particular formulation. But one of the things that I point out when considering these kind of things is that, okay, if water stores memory, then actually one of the ways that people try to argue against this is that, well, that means that all water on Earth has this memory going back millions of years. It has memory of every single thing that ever happened to it. But actually, that memory gets kind of erased during the natural water cycle. When you got evaporation, condensation, and it rains back down, that's kind of like a reset to the water. And that's a distillation process, so your distilled water is kind of like water that's hit the reset button. You know, so it's good in the sense that it's a blank slate, so to speak. But you know, what we like to do is add a mineral solution to it so that it can hold the structure, and also the minerals help to conduct electrical currents, which are beneficial for the kind of signaling that takes place in water as well.
Yeah. You know, we've been on a little path. Dana started a group that been studying water, and it's led some interesting places. Of course, to John Stewart Reed's Sinoscope and taking pictures of specific sounds, you know, vibrations that are there. And of course, this led to the sound healing group, David Gibson, and the work he's trying to do in looking at specific vibrations and frequencies and how they affect specific healing modalities on specific specific issues that people would, you know, life has, you know, like so yeah. And how could, and of course we came from the water point, can that be bottled? Can we use the memory of water to bottle certain frequencies and energy, especially with the structure of the art crystal, to target specific healing needs to balance the life force system? So this is just sort of like the path that this group has been pursuing and where we're at. And that's why I'm, you know, now that ever since Olaf told all the kids that water has memory in the movie Frozen 2, are we moving into an area where, you know, we can use water to bring the vibrations of certain harmonic vibrations inside the whole body system.
Are you saying space memory has made it to Disney?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I was blown away. You know, watch the movie Frozen 2. It's got a metaphysical meaning. And they asked the snowman, Olaf, does water, what's that thing about water? Yeah, water has memory.
That's great.
And the story itself dealt with water having to break the dams of the past. So pretty heavy metaphysical
right there.
story.
That's great. The kids get it.
Yeah, you know, but it was, yeah, I definitely watched Frozen 2. It's pretty cool. But so yeah, and then we're looking at, you know, this, we're just in the early stage of being able to document some of the which frequencies work with what. I mean, David Gibson is, and his sound healing group is getting very wanting to get very technical so that he can bring it into mainstream. And he definitely would like to collaborate with what you guys are doing. And the art crystal I see is very important for the ability of water to do this.
So with Reed, are you programming the water using cymatic frequencies?
Well,
like a cymatic type treatment?
That might be a not yet or anything, but when we had John Stewart Reed come to our group, and then that led to David Gibson and the healing sound frequency. So yeah, I mean, and I know I talked to this, we mentioned that to Nassim and the Q&A, and he said that there was a direction where we're going to get a couple of the sinoscopes and use them to do some research there, but that COVID and stuff sort of did that. But David Gibson's looking at getting funding to do some more research in those directions. So that's sort of the collaboration that's been happening, coming out of here, that Dana sort of started with water studies.
That sounds great.
So
keep on updating us as you go.
Yeah.
I know you posted into the forum.
Yeah, well. And if you got, if there's somebody there that might want to participate in collaboration, let them, you know, David is convinced that he can get all the money we need to do the work. So I'm pretty pretty impressive that in that way. So let's see where that goes.
Great, cool. All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you always. Be well. All right, we got a couple more William questions here on the list. Have you studied, this is from Luke Archambault. Have you studied nanobacteria, also called microzymes and somatides? And what is your understanding of them?
Yeah. I actually did a research project on them in one of my biogeology classes back when I was at the university. I was always finding projects. They were the weirdest thing to present on. But yeah, so the nanobacteria are still to this day very perplexing to me. So it looked pretty clear that the researchers. It's been so long, I forget some of the early researchers who were doing work on the nanobacteria, even the folks who discovered them first. But for folks who don't know, some of the first discoveries of this phenomenon was taken from deep Earth core samples. Rocks taken from even 2 miles below ground. And it's very interesting because even if you go 2 miles into the Earth's crust, there's life down there. There's living organisms, which has been to the benefit of the Earth because it's kind of a really protected source of life. If there's ever a meteor impact or some kind of large surface event that's hostile to surface life, not a problem because the life 2 miles down doesn't even seem to notice, and it can rehabilitate the biosphere after such an event. But they were looking at those deep samples, and it was one of those ones that it was by accident where they had petri dishes and they started to notice there was some kind of film growing in them. These petri dishes that had been exposed to those deep core samples, and they go and they look at it under the microscope, and sure enough, it's something that's growing and spreading out, but it's extremely small. So we're talking about it in the nanometer sized range, and that's problematic in terms of it being a living thing, because nanometer scale is like the size of your genome, your DNA. So kind of the idea is that you need something that's like the micrometer scale to house the DNA inside of it. If it gets too small, how does it even house the necessary amount of biomolecules to perform metabolic functions and replicate and divide and grow and all of that? So in that sense, it was a really controversial finding because they're so small. It was thought that they're below the lower limits of what you could have as a autonomously self-replicating system, organism. And it was even further complicated by the fact that no matter how many times they tried, they could see these films, they could look under the microscope and see these tiny, tiny things growing and dividing. But no matter how many times they tried, they couldn't isolate any DNA, any RNA from the system. Now that is extremely problematic because how do you have something growing and replicating without DNA or RNA, the replication molecule? So it basically left it just as an extremely controversial finding because it just flew in the face of anything that was understood, even as like common logic to molecular biology and biology itself, going down at that small threshold. I mean, the only comparable thing you have to that is viruses, but viruses are not autonomously self-replicating organisms. They're really, they have to hijack another organism, the cell, to actually be able to replicate. And also they have RNA or DNA, which these nanobes didn't. So yeah, it's extremely interesting. And even to this day, I'm perplexed by what those are. Although I would say that I have come to a better understanding of what could be going on from holofractal graphic physics. Because one of the prominent properties of holofractal graphic physics is that surface horizon, that membrane structure, can encode all the information of the interior. So it really places a lot of the importance of any system on the boundary condition, on the surface horizon, the membrane. And so it's an interesting idea that, what came first with the living organism, DNA or the cellular membrane? I actually am of the camp that views it more as the cellular membrane came first, that was the first information carrying structure. And I kind of say it loosely because most of it kind of came together at roughly the same time in coordination. But myself, I don't see how you can have any of that other stuff without the membrane, without that surface horizon structure. So the nanobes might be what you're seeing there. Is that the most primordial kind of form of life you could imagine doesn't have DNA or RNA. It has the membrane, and that is what carries the information, what allows it to access the morphogenic field, the space memory network, to pass information on and replicate and grow.
Wow. Well, actually, I'm just only familiar with the works of Gaston Nassens. And that's recent, it's contemporary. He passed away a few years ago here in Quebec, but he had developed a super microscope, and he actually followed the cycle of the somatites. He's the one who called them somatites. And they have, I think it's a 14 or 16 transformation cycle. I don't know if you've seen that part, but it's very fascinating because it's extremely detailed, and he repeated this observation and filmed it and photographed it. The beauty of his microscope was it had about the precision of an electronic microscope, but it was taking pictures of live matter.
Wow.
And, but there were like 16 cycles where it's transformed in different shapes, and you were healthy up to the 3 first cycles. And as soon as it really morphed from one shape to another. But when it started moving from the 4th to the 5th to the last, that's where you were in trouble. So he could diagnose very early by looking at your fluid, the state of the somatite, like at what space they were, at what level of morphing they were. And it was very precise.
Well, and so it sounds like he was looking at nanopes that were coming from the body.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
He was.
interesting.
I'm not sure if it was. I think it was in the blood, not in the interstitial fluid.
Uh-huh.
I think it was in the blood that he found it. And yes, it was very controversial, but he had so much material, so much visual material about it. It was very precise. I can see if I can send you some stuff on this.
Yeah, that would be great because that's actually I haven't seen much of that work,
Mhm.
and you know it would be extremely interesting if you know there was kind of this unseen potential source of disease, right? Because you know you just think about some diseases that seem to come from nowhere, and you know it's not bacterial, it's not viral. It's like what exactly is going on? You know, it'd be interesting if there was. I guess that would actually make it the fourth kind of category because you know you got bacteria, viruses, you got prions, which are just protein. It'd be interesting if you just had membrane-bound structures, these somites, as he called them. I'd love to see more information if you have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can I send it to you?
I can send you my email address. I'm sure I can get that.
I can put mine and.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you could put yours, yeah, that works nicely. Yeah.
I'll have to do some digging
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because his business is still in operation, and actually tried it with my partner, but it was kind of too late then.
Oh yeah.
It's very interesting. His theory is that I don't think I could explain it right away, but he had a serum that he developed with a lot of nitrogen. Because he said when your cells turn to a cancerous condition, it's because they start pumping nitrogen from the other cells around it. So it weakens the cells around it, and that's how the cancer spreads. So by feeding nitrogen, and actually it's in the lymph in the groin that had to be injected to be near to the glands. And so there was nitrogen, and there were all the amino acids required to feed. So the nitrogen was to stop cannibalizing the nitrogen from the healthy cells. So they were feeding itself. And then they had the oligo elements to reconstruct the cells. And there was something else. It's been a while. But anyway, I'll dig up what I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
I didn't know about this.
Wow.
2 miles down below the earth. I did actually the other names I was not familiar with them. It's Patrice, another guy on the water group. He was to him they were all the same things. Whatever I wrote.
Yeah. You know, it was probably at least 15 years ago that I was researching some of this stuff on the nanobes. So this will be a great chance to catch up on even some of the research, how it's come along on what they were finding down in the Earth's crust. And I'm not really surprised to hear that this kind of phenomenon has been observed in other areas now, like the human body. Even that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
All right. Let's do a little hopping around just to maybe kind of a little lightning round of some questions here. This one from Cristiano Eltrayana is one I'm very interested in as well. I just did a breatharian retreat with maybe the colleague she's referring to here. So I'll bring on Christiana, and she's asking, are you planning on doing some research into breatharianism at any time soon? And she has a colleague that offered to be researched. Let me just bring her on if she can mention that a little bit more as well. So William, yeah, that's, you were talking about your highly sensitive chamber. It's different kind of a study, perhaps. The idea of breatharianism is more related to a direct access of the space-time network, the space memory network, and the prana you know, the life force that's permeating everything and that is animating the vitality of our systems. And there are those who live directly off of that energy and have, you know, tapped into the methodology through meditation, qigong practice, lots of different ways of receiving the necessary energy vitality from other than food and in some cases even water, which is quite fascinating when you think about the implications of that relative to the science here that is in the theory. Is that anything that you have considered researching?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because actually, you know, Nassim has a very particular interest in breath breatharianism. Because you know, he when he was living in the van and you know doing his advanced physics research, kind of formulating the first unified solutions to physics. During that time period, he wasn't eating food. You know, he went
For like 5 years. Right?
yeah. And you know, I've seen pictures of him from that time, and he was very skinny. You know, so I mean, I do not doubt at all when he says. I don't think he's exaggerating at all when he says he wasn't eating food. You know, so it just, you know, for him, he knows that this is a real phenomenon. You know, he lived like that. That you can draw energy from the space memory network. You know, from, you know, if you're thinking of it from the Eastern philosophical tradition, you know, from the pranic field. And so, you know, it's a particular research interest of ours because, okay, what is happening physically when that's being done? You know, so i.e., what is the scientific explanation for this process? And actually, we think we have identified what's happening and where it's happening in the body, you know, at the physical level, physical energetic level. Um, and it involves the mitochondria. So
Right.
when you're looking at the uh, anatomy of the mitochondria, so the mitochondria are a subcellular organelle within every cell of the body. And the number of different things the mitochondria do, it's a long list. It's best known perhaps though as the energy producing organelle of the cell. So, you know, it's generating the adenosine triphosphate, ATP, which carries these high energy electronic bonds. Um, Now, at the site of the production of that ATP molecule, there's some very interesting physics going on. So you have this nanomachine, the ATP synthase, which is, you know, this huge macromolecular machine assembly. It's embedded in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So the mitochondria have a double membrane structure. And the inner membrane is folded just like the sulci and gyri of the cortex of the brain. I don't think that's coincidental either. Because in addition to being one of the energy producers of the cell, the mitochondria does function as the brain to a large extent. It coordinates myriad cell signaling cascades, you know, orchestrating cellular behavior. And actually, some of the highest concentration of mitochondria in your body occur at the synapse of the neuron. Um, I know I was just amazed one time looking at electron micrographs of brain sections where you can see the synapse of a neuron, and it's just packed full of mitochondria. And I just remember thinking, I don't think that's coincidental, but it's just this like wonderful fractal structure, because if you look at that brain section, it's a sulci and gyrus highly folded membrane type structure of the brain. Then you go inside at the molecular level, the macromolecular level, and it's this highly folded inner membrane structure of the mitochondria. But so in that inner membrane, there's the ATP synthase. Now, yes, so some of the very interesting, let's say, physics occurring there is that ATP synthase is spinning. It's spinning extremely fast. It's actually been clocked at about 8,500 revolutions per minute. Now, for comparison, a jet engine spins at about 10,000 RPM. So it's almost as fast as a turbine on the jet engine. Now, immediately, that's pretty interesting to us because of the role that spin plays in physics processes. And so you have that spin, and what it's doing is it's pumping a proton plasma across the membrane. So now you've got these two elements that are coming together that are very interesting to us. You have a spinning plasma.
Wow.
Now one of the devices that Nassim is building, for instance, to couple to the vacuum structure, pull energy from it, or even to modulate the geometry of the vacuum structure of space, is a spinning plasma. And lo and behold, there's myriad of these apparatuses inside every mitochondria, inside of every cell in the human body. And so, very simply, our hypothesis on this, our thought process on this is that, okay, you've got this proton plasma that's being spun by, this spinning nanomachine. And it's actually also coupled to superconducting electrons. So along that inner membrane, there's electrons that are being conducted, superconduction. And so, this is a prime area where your energy apparatus of your cell could be coupling to the vacuum. And we believe it is coupled to the vacuum. And so this provides not only an avenue for the exchange of information with the unified field, because the mitochondria and the ATP that's generated is intricately involved in cellular communication, intercellular and intra and intercellular communication. So this link for the information flow from the space memory network, the unified field, into the cell, into your body, but as well a potential source to tap energy that you're not getting from food metabolism. And so we could almost imagine that if you're getting that system into a high enough coherent state that it's starting to match the coherence level of the vacuum oscillations, you can have a very efficient transfer of energy and information. And that energy is producing ATP that feeds your cells, that drives your cells, and nourishes your body without eating food. So, we not only believe that, it's possible, but we believe we've identified where and how it's happening. And, the step now is to, okay, let's write the mathematics for it. Let's do experiments to show that that is, in fact, what is occurring. And that's kind of the step we're on now.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was listening very enthusiastically to the details of your research. about the person who is a Dzogchen trained meditator that has emitted photons during your research. And I just want to refer to breatharianisms like being tenfold or hundredfold times a Dzogchen meditator experience and expertise. Because then you don't only calm your mind, but you also feed yourself during that meditation. So it would be interesting to research what happens at the photonic level with such a person. What kind of light does it emit in a room? You know.
Yeah, I that could be a really excellent way to observe and quantify this kind of effect, because I have little doubt that you would see in an experienced breatharianism practitioner like probably several fold increase in the amount of photons being emitted by the body.
Yeah.
And that kind of links with the esoteric teachings of the light body, which is actually pretty literal. The
I was
literal light
exactly
body.
thinking of that because the Dzogchen practice eventually leads to the rainbow body, which is the body of light in the Tibetan tradition, which is so the main thing above and beyond the meditation that they do is to hold only positive, uplifting thoughts for several years, not having one negative thought, in order to heighten the frequency of the physical cells so that they reach a frequency where they can be malleable, where they can disappear, reappear, be absorbed into a very small body, or only leave the hair and nails, as some masters do when they attain the rainbow body and decide to leave the earth. But that's one attribute of the rainbow body, when you want to leave the earth and you just leave your nails behind. But what if you want to stay on the earth and be here without using external resources, and eventually dematerialize, rematerialize, teleport, duplicate, whatever you want to do with your vessel, That would be interesting to research, because I have colleagues who are doing this and I've noticed them doing it. So some of them have offered to actually participate in these studies. That would be astonishing for humanity to actually observe what's possible with a human body. I have colleagues who have been tested in prani festivals. They were monitored while sleeping and while meditating. Their weight would decrease or increase, like visibly on the machineries, while they were modifying their mind state, which is to show that your physical vessel is actually malleable, even in terms of weight, when you modified your state of mind. Imagine if you researched further at what happens at the photons level, what happens at the calories level, maybe what happens at the exchange with other environments, like monitoring a breatharian people and a person who's not breatharian, what happens in the DNA of the other person who's in the room with a breatharian, to then notice what kind of influence a breatharian has on masses of people, how they can uplift maybe hundreds of people while being in a room. We have felt it, in prani festivals, but what if we even research it on machinery to actually monitor it correctly?
Yeah, I'd love to see that happen. It sounds that's really interesting to hear, William, that you guys are actually giving it so much thought already, with a foundation for the theory of where that may be taking place and how that would actually be working in the physics of the body, the cells, the mitochondria interaction with the field. So that is really, really exciting, really cool. So it sounds like a good prospect for that to happen.
work, you guys, and the way, William, you look at this, and the way Nassim's approaching this is groundbreaking, and you're of so much help for the evolution of humanity only by understanding this, not to mention researching it. So I'm really grateful. I'm really honored to meet you and have this chat with you on this topic.
Oh,
I
thank
wish
you.
more scientists were open to this.
Thank you, Christiana. Yeah, because I just think that it's one of those things that if we can provide good, solid physical explanations for it, makes it accessible to more people. And uh, I just think that you know having it so that more individuals can experience and access this state of being is pretty important for humanity, in general, to kind of advance here. So, I think it's part of a bigger picture, even.
I think it also is
A
relevant
much bigger
to
picture. Imagine if we eventually realize that we have free energy in our human body and that we can master it, and it's scientifically proven, then it's a piece of cake to have free energy fueled vehicles. Because so far, our science has only replicated what our body can do.
Yeah.
Once we fully understand that we can do free energy in our body, we'll have free energy on the planet in a blink of an eye. But our consciousness needs to shift to believe that in order to materialize it in the real world, right? That's the step necessary for us now, to move into free energy, to understand that we have that in our body. At least
I think
that's
it's
what I
also
believe.
very relevant to the bigger picture of our evolution out into the galactic community, because as much as we have a good test subject of tomatoes that last a long time, we still would have to eat them and then replace them somewhere out in space. So ultimately it does seem like in order to really expand out, we need to understand that we can access the field in ways that will potentially in a larger context, transcend that dependency we have on the nutrition source, as we have been kind of indoctrinated into thinking is the only way, which is not necessarily the case. So, yeah. Well, great question, Christiana. Thanks for bringing that in. And I'm really, really excited to hear that there's so much thought going into this already.
And
Thank you so much. We've been having chat. Go ahead. We've been having chats with William for quite a while, and I've managed to compile some of this in a book called the Pranic World Book, where the scientific research that I've discovered so far is all put together there so that people can actually read about it. And please go ahead, William. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Thank you for sharing that. I hope we can see that book before too long. I was just going. I just noticed there were some comments where I saw a little bit of confusion on the term plasma. I just wanted to clarify real quick, and it is confusing on how this term is used because in physics, plasma is a fourth state of matter, really fifth state of matter, but in biology, and particularly when you're talking about the body, plasma is often used to talk about like blood plasma, which is different than plasma you have in physics. So plasma in that biological context is oftentimes just referring to the fluid intermediary, basically the interstitial water that has all the dissolved nutrients and everything inside of it. Now, when I was talking about plasma, spinning plasma in the mitochondria, I wasn't talking about blood plasma, not the like biological kind of fluid plasma, more the physics kind of plasma, the free protons. That's what it is. It's free protons because one of the things that your body's doing, your cells are doing inside that mitochondria is subatomic engineering. It's rearranging matter at the subatomic level. It'll take in water and air, and it will separate the oxygen and the carbon and the electrons and the protons, and it does alchemy with that to generate your energy and even cellular communication and those kind of things. So not blood plasma, the physics kind of plasma.
Yeah.
Thank
Great.
you for that.
Thank you, Christiana. Good to see you.
Great to see you all. Happy holidays and much love to all.
Thank you.
You too.
See you at the solstice.
Jamie, you want to chime in on anything that you, we have a few more minutes, we can get around to wrapping up here. Anything that is you want to bring your perspective into?
There's a question directly addressed to Jamie. I don't know if.
Yeah, Jeannie Dubois says, follow up to Jamie, love to ask a question about syncing up with my divine blueprint and healing experiences, including regaining all my peripheral vision after glaucoma. Wow, that's good that you regained vision. I don't know what the question is, though. It just says, I'd love to ask a question. So maybe if you could find her, Marshall.
Well, it looks like Janine Dubois is no longer in the participant list here. So.
Well, I'll just say to her, even if she's not here, because she'll see it later on YouTube, because we're live on YouTube right now, and the video will live there, that there's this direct relationship I have found from talking to people about this stuff for a long time, that the more you understand, I'll just say it simply, the more you understand the dynamics and structure of the universe, the more you can understand yourself and your relationship to the universe, which you are fractally and infinitely embedded inside of. So it's good, I think. I've seen people, study this stuff and kind of self-correct their direction of intention and what they were doing and what they were working on. And like I was saying earlier, kind of like help you have tools to navigate. Because plasma dynamics is pretty much the deal across everything in the whole universe. And plasma dynamics involves things like turbulence and changes that are sometimes very rapid. And so that's a metaphor for what we're dealing with in our day-to-day and also our decade-to-decade. Just look at what's been going on in the last decade or so. Super full on, right? Since 2012 and right before 2012, we were like, oh, wow, things are major stuff, and then all that seems quaint now to compare to what's going on now, the tidal shifts. So it's a good time to tap into all of these. Oh, look, there she is.
Yes.
Hi, what's your question?
We found her.
Amy, I love what you're saying. I don't remember exactly what you were saying right towards the very beginning of the call, but all of a sudden I was like, whoa, yes. I for myself, if I can just say in a really contracted form, I had glaucoma. I had 6 visual fields tests showing I was missing the upper peripheral vision. I had 2 doctors diagnose me with it. And I do a method called TAT, which really has to do with being present with what is, and then present with other possibilities. And so the stuff that's not really there lifts off, it's a, but in the process, I just had this thought, and I said to I got the metaphor. So I got the communication that having glaucoma, missing peripheral vision is like being blindsided, which was the case when I was a child. And so I did some work around that, releasing that. And then I just was just telling my eyes, thank you for everything you've done for me, whether I recognized it or not, When it was scary for me to see, you helped me not to. Now my life is different. I want to see. And then I just had this thing come into my head that said, you have a divine blueprint. And I want you to look around and find your divine blueprint and sync up with it. And when I went to the doctor, he was like, because I had all my vision back, and that was January of 2012. And I still have it back. But I was just thinking, it's like I think it's all related. There's the communication, whether it's in the water, the information in the water, like the glacier milk, by the way, I think is even better than spring water. Yeah, like I drink it from a glacier in Washington. It's 30,000 to 300,000 years old. If you look at, so the water, the crystals, that, there's just this, the more we sync up with the truth of what is, the more it's just as you were describing, Jamie. I mean, are we on the same page? Is that?
Yeah, I would translate divine blueprint as geometry of space-time.
Yeah, sacred geometry, geometry of space-time. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because the other thing, knowing about the 99.9999% space, when I'm doing my process at TAT, I just a few months ago started adding whatever I was addressing. I started adding everything known and unknown about this, and all the space within and between. And the first time I did that, I don't normally like wake up the way I had that morning. I just had a lot of agitation. I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of mind chatter. It was kind of strange. So I was doing this TAT, and I had that thought, and in less than a fraction of a second, like instantly, all of that was gone. And it was almost like I was on the other side of the veil. It was just like total peace, total non-mind, total, everything felt wonderful. But it was so interesting that I was saying, including all the space within and between. Like, within every cell, between everything. So I think that's probably connecting with the, say the words again.
Well, the geometry of space-time.
Space-time, there we go.
Space is everywhere you go, no matter how big or how small. It's the one thing that's everywhere, and it connects everything. And so it makes sense that if you want to understand the universe, and things like matter is 99.99999% space, so you might want to pay attention to the 99% part of the universe a little bit more, maybe even, than the 0.001% that you actually can see as manifesting as matter. It's mostly space, so it makes sense to like visualize the space, figure out everything you can about the space, and that would probably naturally, it would make sense that would apply to healing processes and understanding how your biology is interacting with the space. That's what William's been working on with Nassim on Space Memory Network, trying to figure out how memory works, how cognition works, where consciousness comes from, micro wormholes connecting protons. I mean, there's so many layers to this, and we're in the early days. It's 2020. It's like the old days right now. So,
well, and if I can add to that too, because you're talking about the memory and all of that, something I've also done is to send love and safety and recognition back through the ancestral lines. And it has caused like really incredible, miraculous healings.
And the ancestral lines are connected by the structure of space, because DNA is leaving an imprint on itself as it's moving through space-time. That's a long description, but just dropping some seeds. Maybe next time we can delve into all of that, William, right? Like DNA encoding on space-time. Yeah. That's a great one. Because when you know that, you can go back into coordinates in space and time and change your opinion about how you felt about something in the past.
Right.
And change how you feel right now, which changes the decisions you're going to make in the future. So you're actually doing time travel in a sense.
Yeah, and I've actually seen like I had an album, picture album of my cats, and they never, except for like one time, would touch each other. And then after one of them passed away, I was looking to make a collage, and there were all these pictures of them touching each other. And it's like, okay, the timeline changed, you know, and there was the visual. Yeah, yeah, it's just so beautiful, so amazing. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Wow, thanks for sharing your journey that way and your direct connection into that divine blueprint. That what I wrote about a chapter in my book called The Hologramic Blueprint, and you know, it's really that relationship between the information field, the consciousness, biology, the cohering of our form as a manifestation of our consciousness being, and that there has to be a blueprint there. How else could it be so beautifully well coordinated? And it's a hologram.
And I have your book, and I'm going to pop to that chapter and really delve into
good.
it.
Yeah, go read that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like even what's happening with the tomatoes. You know, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. We're starting to see that the continuity of that understanding in all these different ways that it manifests. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Your science is just like I hardly have words for it. I mean, it is my hope for our world. I'll just say that. Thank you. Thank you all.
Beautiful.
Thank
Ours
you.
too. Thank you. Bye. Be well.
You too.
All right, gang. I think that wraps it up for us here today. We're in the 2-hour mark. What a session, though. Wow. That was illuminating in so many ways. William, you were definitely the one being tapped for extensive knowledge and insights, as often is the case. But such a fascinating kind of array of topics that actually kind of all spoke about the same thing. Ultimately, it seemed like, you know, that this whole relationship between our biological systems, the information field, our consciousness, energy, you know, the tracing of our lineage and the directed potential of how that was even seeded was just fascinating as could be. So
that is
we'll leave it there.
Pretty awesome how the discussion seemed to have that kind of coherence through the whole session, huh?
Yeah. That right there was a elective program.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to remind you guys that, you know, when you have these kinds of conversations with people out there that might not be as familiar, and you start to go into some sort of what can seem like an esoteric topic or an edge of science kind of topic, and they go, what are you talking about? And you're trying to explain, you know, this very, very large thing that is unified field theory. Just a reminder that there's a free course that you can just be like, take this course, because there's so much information and you can't explain it very easily. I've been trying to learn how to explain it for a long time. Just a reminder to like send folks to this free course at resonantscience.org, because there's so much in there, and they can go just to the modules or the parts that they really are most interested in. And it's a great way for you not to feel this burden of like, oh, I wish I could explain this and like give these people the aha moments that I've had. And that's a way to do that and bring them in the door. Then you start talking, and then you have great conversations with these folks that some of you might know need this information right now, right? Like, it's time to like get our acts together here on planet Earth. So thanks for being here.
Thank you too, Jamie, for being here. You always provide such great context for understanding the importance of this for our world. We always appreciate that. And again, remember that Dr. Lydia has a program or a webinar on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time about the sacred science of Ancient Temples, her elective program. That's going to be really cool. And yeah, check out the rest of the electives, and everybody just enjoy the magical solstice coming up with Jupiter and Saturn conjuncting and right on the solstice. I mean, come on, what kind of coincidence is this? It's a great, beautiful cosmic blueprint going on right here. And we're really blessed to be able to go through this journey together and share this time together and come out the other side of this year and see what 2021 is going to bring us. I know it's going to be an amazing transitional time. We're already in it, obviously. And there's just, I think, some remarkable breakthroughs that are going to be what really seeds the shift that we are here taking a stand for. Not the least of which is what we're doing right now, having these conversations together. So thank you everybody for joining us. Be very well and safe during the holiday time and through this period we're in. And we will see you all in 2021 when we reconvene in January for our next faculty Q&A. And thank you, William, Jamie, Ines for being here, David in the background, Nassim for providing us a foundation of understanding to even have these conversations together. So be well, lots of love, everybody. Take good care. And we'll see you
Take care. Much love.